Hello again, welcome to the study. I've called this study the Crescent Moon. It's a series, we're up to number 36 in Israel, the Church and the Kingdom of God. I've written 7 books to cover this series. I preached this sermon, I think about 15 years ago, the whole series, and it was the 4:3. Remember the square little televisions before the widescreen? That proportions are 4:3. Now it's 16:9. That's the proportions. And I was looking at it last year and I thought that's dated. Not only do I look younger, which is nice, but it's dated. It's narrow in the widescreen, and I thought I need to go through this series again. And I never preached this study. It's in a chapter in the book, but I never preached about the Crescent Moon, so here goes. Europe has been resurrected over the last 40 years, hasn't it? From maybe 1992. And that's not by chance. It's the revival of the Roman Empire, isn't it? You know, imperial Rome in Constantine morphed into religious Rome. But it's still the statue of the Babylon. It's the legs of Babylon, the iron legs. Remember the statue, the head of gold, the breast of silver, the thighs of brass, and the 2 legs of iron. And they were the empires, the Medes and the Persians after the Babylonian Empire, then the Greek Empire, and then the Romans. Well, the Roman Empire is still standing today. It's the Roman Catholic Church because Imperial Rome morphed into religious Rome. The title of the Pope Pontiff, it's a title of the governor of Rome, isn't it? The Pontiff. So it's the Roman Catholic Church. So it's still the legs of Rome. And it's been revived with the European Union over the last 40 years. Just some dates, if you're interested. The Maastricht Treaty, 7th of February 1992. That's where it was formulated. And the launch of the single market was the 1st of January 1993. I remember in 1992, when we went to Europe, we had to declare tapes and books in those days. When we used to tour Europe, Holland and Belgium and France and Germany. We used to go for a month at a time, and we'd fill the car with cassettes of Joni singing and cassettes of me preaching. And we had to declare them when we got across the channel. We had to declare and pay tax on it because we were selling them. But that changed, didn't it, with the European Union? We were part of Europe. I know we've come out now, but we were part of Europe and the single market. Well, it's interesting because I'm talking about Islam today, the crescent moon. The symbol of Islam is a crescent moon, and the horns of a bull represent this. So Islam could be the bull that rapes Europe. Don't forget the woman rode the beast. That's the myth of Europa. I don't know if you know, but Charlemagne changed it to Europe. After the myth of Europa, if you don't know it, I'll explain it. Zeus, a god, came down in the form of a bull, and he saw this beautiful woman called Europa. And he put her on his back and he rode into the sea and raped her. And I think the result was Apollos, the god, born on 25th of December or so, I believe. I think that's right. I'm going from memory. But the bull raped the woman. So if the woman is Europe, fancy naming Europe after that myth. So Europe's going to get raped, isn't it? By the bull. Well, Islam could be the one that rapes it. I'm not saying this as a fact, I'm just bringing it to your attention. I'm bringing a scenario that for you to consider. I'm not saying I believe it 100%, but you need to know all sides of the argument, don't you? If you only hear one side, then you can't give a considered opinion. So I'm going to quote from Wade Cox, it's copyright. The bull's crescent-shaped horns link him to the moon worship and symbolism sin. Symbolism. Sin, the moon god of ancient Ur. So this is who Abram worshipped, the moon god. Was often pictured as a bull. The flag of Islam incorporates the crescent moon, the horns of the calf or bull with stars, and it's pagan in origin. So that's a quote, an authentic quote. The bullhorn represents a crescent and have astrological and connections to the Quran. I don't know if you know that. Just some facts and figures. I've brought these up to date because this was 15 years ago. But today Islam's practiced by 2 billion people. That's a quarter of the world's population. And it's the fastest growing world faith. So the myth of Europa, the mystical woman, has given a name to Europe. And in the myth, the beast that Europa rides rapes her. So I'm suggesting that something or some political power will rape Europe. Not physical rape, obviously. You know, England, the British Empire raped India and Africa for all the minerals. It's in that context that I'm saying it. So why would Europe choose to be named Europe, knowing the myth? And they know the myth because all over Europe there's a woman riding a bull. I showed in past issues the woman riding the bull in Strasbourg and Oslo and Russia. And all over Europe there's statues of the woman riding the bull on postage stamps or on coins. I showed a Greek coin where the woman was riding a bull. So it's integral for Europe, and the symbolism, the unfinished Tower of Babel, that's part of Europe, isn't it? The unfinished tower. I've put all this in previous studies, so I'm not going to go over it. So I believe Europe is being prepared for judgment. So God uses nations to judge other nations. In the Old Testament, God always used the Amalekites to punish Israel. God never did it. He made the Amalekites come in. He made the Philistines come in. He made Amalek. You know, he made other nations judge Israel. What nation's going to rape Europe? God's judgment. Well, let's read Revelation 17 because it describes the woman and the beast that she rides upon. We looked at it in the last study, so I'm not going to go over that. But Revelation 17, verse 15. Verse 14. These shall make war with the Lamb, and the Lamb shall overcome them. This is the 10 nations that give the power to the beast. For he is the Lord of lords and King of kings, and they that are with him are called faithful, chosen and faithful. And he said unto me, the waters which thou sawest where the horse sitteth are peoples and multitudes and nations and tongues. And the 10 horns which thou sawest upon the beast, these shall hate the whore, hate Babylon. So I've got quotes in the book, and I think in other studies, that essentially the religion of Catholicism is the religion of Babylon. I've got quotes where they admit it, the Catholic Church, on the Catholic website, that they've brought paganism into Catholicism by their own admission. and shall make her desolate and naked, and shall eat her flesh and burn with her fire. For God has put it in their hearts to fulfill his will, and to agree and give their kingdom unto the beast, until the words of God be fulfilled. So these 10 kings that the beast gives power to, they'll give their allegiance to the beast. But God's put it in his heart, their heart, to destroy the woman. So there's 10 kings. So it seems like 10 nations or 10 people groups will destroy Europe. It's not the beast who does it. God's put it in the heart of these 10 kings, not the beast. The beast gives them power, and they decide to destroy the woman. They decide to destroy it. So don't forget, the history is God's plan. It's not the devil's plan. The devil hasn't got a plan. His plan is to disrupt God's plan. It's all about God, isn't it? God created and God rules in the affairs of men. So everything that happens on the planet, good or bad, is ordained by God, or else he's not sovereign. If the devil can play havoc outside of God's will, then God's not sovereign, is he? I'm just using logic. If God is all powerful, there's no power for anyone else. If I have all power, you have none. So the devil has no power, only God's power. God designates his power. So the devil can only use the power he's been given. He hasn't got a power. He's created. So it's only a person self-created has power. Or else you've got delegated power. Nobody has power of themselves unless they create themselves. It's delegated. So the devil's only got delegated power. So everything that happens in this planet, God rules in the affairs of men. The Bible says he's sovereign, he's all powerful. So every part of history is part of God's plan. He allows what he hates to bring about his purpose. He allowed sin and he hates sin. He hates divorce, but he allowed it for the hardness of our hearts. So God allows what he hates to bring about what he loves. Let me say that again. God allows what he hates to bring about what he loves. God's got a plan, and we all end up happily ever after. God gets his wife back, Israel. She's restored when Jesus pleads with her. And Jesus comes and gets his bride. It's all about romance, love and family life, the plan of God. And in every romance, there's always disasters, isn't there? That's what makes you cry at the end. Oh, my hero. You know, that's what makes a tear come down your face, because when you thought all was lost, then the bride comes back to the lover after he thought she died or gone away with another man. There's always tragedy in love, isn't there? And then it ends up, oh, wonderful. And we all say, oh, and we all end up happily ever after. That's because it's in the heart of every man to be romantic, to be a lover, because God is romantic and a lover. You can't have love without romance. You can have lust without romance, because lust takes, but love gives. God so loved that he gave. If you're a taker, you're not a lover. Lovers give, lust takes. So we don't have to fear anything, do we? Christians are fearful about what's happening. Oh, what will happen if there's another COVID? What happens if this? We don't have to fear, because if we understand that all circumstances of life, including our failures, are not by chance. God uses your failures more than your success. When you're successful, it could have been luck or chance. But when you fail, you know you've messed up. And so you learn from your mistakes. So God allows us to make mistakes, because that's how we learn our lessons. And you learn more in your tragedy, your failures, your sin, your disobedience than they ever learn in obedience. That's why nobody's perfectly obedient. God doesn't want you to be perfectly obedient, because you learn perfection through the things that you suffer. You learn by your mistakes, don't you? Can you see, if David hadn't sinned, he couldn't have said, why have you forsaken me? My God, why have you forsaken me? He said that, didn't he? with his own experiences, who was role-playing Jesus. My God, why have you forsaken me? So you've got to go through these things. So it's all the plan of God. Well, the 10 nations, the powers or kingdoms, will give authority to the beast, who's Satan personified, because God's put it in his heart. So if God puts it in the heart, my argument is it's not a natural thing to do. If God's got to put it in your heart, it wasn't in your heart. So they would have never turned against and raped Europe. They would have never turned and destroyed the beast that they were riding on. But God's put it in the heart. So it's not a natural thing to do. So some points worth considering. Islam is gaining tremendous grounds in Europe. We know now, but there's all protests about Islam coming in. Some facts, I've checked these last week. There's 85 Sharia law courts in Great Britain. They're not allowed to go outside the British jurisdiction of law. They've got to keep within the law of the land, so they can't stone somebody who commits adultery. But they're independent law courts, Sharia law courts. But at the moment, they've got to come under the British law. There is estimated 1,800 to 2,500 mosques in Great Britain. That's a lot of mosques, isn't it? I don't know how many the churches are. I should have compared it. But London alone has 400 mosques, including some of the largest, such as the East London Mosque at Baitu Futar, the largest Ahmadiyya mosque in Europe. So London is the biggest mosque in Europe. Germany has an estimated 2,500 mosques. France has 2,300. Other countries have significant numbers, including Russia. France has the largest number of Muslims, 6.7 million, followed by Germany, 5.6 million, and the UK has 4.5 million. Muslims in Europe in 2007 were 55 million. So it's a significant number. Islam and Catholicism are closer than most Christians realise. I don't know if you know, they're very similar. Martin Luther thought so. Let me read from Table Talk of St. Martin Luther. So this is Martin Luther's quote. It's page 193. Antichrist is the Pope and the Turk together. So he thought that the Catholic Church and the Turks, the Muslims, were both Antichrist. A beast full of life must have a body and soul. The spirit or soul of Antichrist is the Pope. His flesh of body, the Turk. You can say Turk for Muslim. The latter wastes and assails and persecutes God's church corporately. The former spiritual and corporately too, with hanging, burning, murdering. But as in the Apostles' time, the church had the victory over the Jews and the Romans, so now we shall keep the field firm and solid against the hypocrisy and idolatry of the Pope, and the tyranny and devastation of the Turk and our other enemies. So Martin Luther thought that the Antichrist was the Turk, the Muslim, and the Catholics. I don't know if you know, but on May the 14th, 1999, Pope John Paul kissed the Quran. That's amazing, because there's no salvation outside the Catholic Church. They're the infidels, aren't they? There's no salvation outside the Catholic Church, but he kissed the Quran. So what's that telling you? The Muslim holy book, during meetings with Arabs leaders at Vatican II. I've got two quotes from the Catholic document. So this is the Catholics, what they think about Muslims. The Church also has a high regard for Muslims. They worship God, who is one, living and subsistent, merciful and almighty, the creator of heaven and earth, who has also spoken to men. They strive to submit themselves without reserve to the bidden decrees of God, just as Abram submitted himself to God's plan, to whose faith Muslims eagerly link their own. Although not acknowledge him as God, they worship Jesus as prophet, his virgin mother. They also honour and even at times devoutly invoke. Further, they await the day of judgment and the reward of God following the resurrection of the dead. So the Pope's saying they're similar to us. They believe in Mary, they believe in Jesus, not as God, but can you see how he's aligning himself with the Muslims? For this reason, they highly esteem an upright life and worship God, especially by way of prayer, alms deeds and fasting. Over the centuries, many quarrels and dissensions have arisen between Christians and Muslims. The Sacred Council now pleads with all to forget the past. Forget the wars, we're one. Catholics and Muslims are one. That's what he's saying. The Sacred Council of the Catholic Church now pleads with all to forget the past and urges that a sincere effort be made to achieve mutual understanding, ecumenism. And the Charismatic Church have embraced the Catholic Church, and they'll embrace Islam, I believe, because we're going to get a one world religion. For the benefit of all men, let them together preserve and promote peace, liberty, social justice and moral values. That's a declaration on the relationship of the Church to the non-Christian religions. That was 28th of October 1965. And another from the Dogmatic Constitution on the Church, November 21, 1964, chapter If the People of God. Finally, those who have not yet received the gospel are related to the people of God in various ways, but the plan of our salvation also includes those who acknowledge the Creator, not Jesus. It's interesting, isn't it? The Creator. Judaism, Islam, and Christianity all accept God as the Creator. But the Muslims and the Jews won't accept Jesus. There's only the Christians. It's interesting. But they're bypassing Jesus and they say other religions accept God in various ways. But the plan of salvation also includes those who acknowledge the Creator, in the first place among whom are Muslims. So the Muslims are top of the list. Those profess to hold the faith of Abram, and together with us they adore the one merciful God, mankind's judge on the last day. So can you see that they're not dissimilar, are they? The fanatical Catholicism of the Spanish Inquisition was produced by Islam. I don't know if you know that. The Vatican pretended to be defender of the Spanish nationalism, and to be Spanish meant to be Catholic. Many of the customs of Spain came from Islam. I don't know if you know that. The rosary came from Muslims. Assassin came from the Muslims. They were the assassins. The church bells, exact counterpart of it, Islamic muezzin to call the faithful to prayer. And it was introduced into Europe by Francis of Assisi, the Catholic monk. He brought the bells to call them to worship, where the Muslims have the muezzin to call the faithful to prayer. So that's just some facts for you to consider. When Jesus comes again to judge the earth, the nations that the Bible says he will fight against are Muslim nations. That's interesting. When he comes again in the Old Testament, Jesus restoring Israel, he'll fight against Egypt, Iraq, Cush, Ethiopia, that's Sudan now, and so on. They're all Muslim nations that Jesus is coming to defeat. Revelation 19, verse 11. Let's read. I saw heaven opened, And behold, a white horse, and he that sat upon him was called Faithful and True. And in righteousness he judges and makes war. His eyes were like flames of fire. Well, that's Jesus for me, because John sees the image. He sees a voice, or hears a voice like a trumpet, and he turns round, and he's shocked, isn't he? Because he sees a man stood there with a girdle about his paps, and his eyes like flames of fire. And I think everyone accepts that's Jesus. And on his head were many crowns, and he had a name written that no man knew but he himself. And I saw the beast and the kings of the earth and their armies gathered together to make war against him that sat upon the horse and against his army. And the beast was taken, and with him the false prophet that wrought miracles before him, which he deceived them that received the mark of the beast, and them that had worshipped the beast. These were both cast alive into the lake of fire, burning with brimstone. So Jesus is coming with the armies of heaven to destroy the nations and rule them with a rod of iron, and smite the nations. So the nations that he comes to fight against are the Arab nations, I believe. The nicknames of the man of sin, I believe it's the king of Babylon, the prince of Tyre. Tyre is now Lebanon, and the Assyrian. So I understand what Martin Luther is saying, that the Catholic Church is the spiritual arm and the Islam is the military arm. Can you see? I understand that. So I'm saying this, I'm not saying I agree with it, I've not studied it. But if we miss the physical and only dwell on the spiritual, we've only got half the picture, haven't we? So the Catholic Church is obviously the religion, the spiritual part. There's a physical part. Martin Luther thought it was Islam. I don't know. Well, Babylon the great whore will have been destroyed when Jesus comes with the armies of heaven. If you read Revelation 17 and 18, Babylon falls, and then it says Jesus comes in great power and glory with the armies of heaven. So Babylon falls first. I don't know if you know, but President de Gaulle, do you remember President de Gaulle? He was the president of France just after the war. And for the days of President de Gaulle, Germany and France, those two powerful, they're the powerhouse of Europe, aren't they? Germany and France. They've courted an axis with the Arab nations. And there's a wonderful book, I've got it on my bookshelf. It's called Eurabia. That's the name that Europe has decided it will be when the Arabs take over. Eurabia, all right. And its book is called Eurabia, the Euro-Arab Axis, by Bat Dior. I've got the book. If anyone emails me, I'll give them the ISBN. It's a very informative book. They've already given a name, the Arabs, to when they take over Europe, Eurabia. And it's a scholarly book. And the book's full of documentary evidence of agreements that Europe have had with the Arab nations. They've made a concordat, they've made an agreement. That's why so many Muslims have come into Europe. It's by agreement from President de Gaulle. I don't know when, I remember when he was president, maybe in the 50s. I don't know when he ceased to be president. But Revelation confirms that the 10 kingdoms will burn Babylon with fire. So let's read it in chapter 18, verse 8 and 9. This is Babylon falling. And the Antichrist, the woman, is the whore of Babylon, which I believe is Catholicism. Therefore shall her place come in one day, death and mourning and famine, and she shall utterly be burned with fire, for strong is the Lord who judges her. And the kings of the earth who have committed fornication and lived deliciously with her shall bewail her and lament her, for they shall see the smoke of her burning. Well, we know it's the 10 kings who destroy the woman, don't we? So many Christians believe the coming one world economic collapse. I think most Christians believe, and most politicians believe, there's a collapse coming that will make, the American collapse. What year was it? 1920. Yeah. He'll make it look like, it's a fantasy, the one world collapse, because America collapsed, but the world didn't collapse. But it's not the fall of Babylon. I believe the one world economic collapse will usher in the one world system. Things will get so bad that people democratically vote the one world dictator in. When things are bad, you'll do anything to save your skin. You'll do anything if there's no food, if you can't travel, if there's no entertainment. If there's no entertainment, people will go mad. I remember when I was a draftsman, I'm talking a lot of years ago, 1962, I think it was, and there was a newspaper strike. Just a newspaper. There's no newspapers. The men went mad. They came because every man brought the newspaper into his office, and he had a break. I'm going to the toilet, and he had the Daily Mail or the Sun under his arm. I'm going to the toilet and sit on the toilet, not to do his business, but to read the paper. Probably page 3, knowing the draftsman that I work with. But when there was no newspaper, they went mad. They were sulking all day, and all day they were saying, "What's up with the country? No newspaper. Why doesn't the government do something?" They were agitated just because they had no newspaper. People will do anything. Electricity goes off. No television. I can't watch United and Liverpool on the telly. I can't watch the rugby. I can't watch Wimbledon. They'll go mad. They'll do anything. They'll give half their wages to have entertainment. Can you see how all these things are trapping us? And they'll vote for anyone, man or devil. I think one famous European politician, I've not got the quote, so forgive me, but he said, "We're looking for a one world leader who will bring world peace." And that's great. Be it man or devil, we'll vote for him. Be it man or devil, so long as he'll bring peace, so long as he'll give us the newspapers and entertainment and food in our bellies, we'll vote for anyone. And that's proved. We vote for the people and they get in, and then they change their mind and do the opposite of what we voted them in for. And then we vote for the next one when they're gone, and then we vote for the next one. And people never wake up, do they? They promise them wonderful things. The taxes will be lower. We'll get more police on the streets, so they vote for them, and then nothing happens. And then another man comes up after 4 years and promises them the same. And they never learn from the mistakes, do they? I think the economic collapse of the world will usher in the one world president. And the one world president will be the first man to come as a man of peace. I think you know about the 7-year period. I've not decided what I believe on it, but there's 3.5 years, isn't there? 2,160 days, 42 months. It's all over Revelation. He will come as a man of peace, not a man of terror and bloodshed. And he'll obtain the kingdom by flatteries, not war. That's what Daniel says. This man will obtain the kingdom by flatteries. That's what Hitler did. He built the roads. He built Germany back again, didn't he? He built the people's car, the Volkswagen. So he got the Germany from the ashes of World War I and made it a great nation again. And they voted him in by flatteries. And then he turned Napoleon. He got in by flatteries, didn't he? He got in subtly. Have you seen the films about Napoleon? He got in subtly and lied by flatteries. And then you realise that he wanted to take over the whole world. That's how men get into power, by flatteries. He'll obtain the kingdom by flatteries, but after 3.5 years, I believe when Satan's cast out of heaven, he'll inhabit the man, and then he will see a turn after 3.5 years. But it's a big subject, and I'm not claiming I know anything. I'm just bringing you about the Arabs, the Muslim that may rape Europe. 1 Thessalonians 5, 1-6. But the times of the seasons, brethren, ye have no need that I write unto you. Yes, you do, Paul, because we're ignorant. For yourselves know perfectly that the day of the Lord so cometh as a thief in the night. In other words, it'll catch you out when you're not expecting it. Otherwise, if you knew the thief was coming, you're behind the front door with a shotgun, aren't you? Or you've got an alarm to the police station, but you don't expect it, so you'll get caught out. For when they shall say peace and safety, then sudden destruction. So the collapse will bring in the one world leader, and he'll be wonderful. He'll bring world peace, because we've only got a one world, so there's no one to fight anyone else. Because you don't need an army, do you? Only to quell, not nation against nation. There'll be one world army, one world court, which we've got now, and one world health. We've got one world health authority, haven't we? So we've got a one world health authority. We've got a one world court. It's not practiced yet, but we've got it. For when they shall say peace and safety, then sudden destruction cometh upon them, as a travail upon a woman with child, and they shall not escape. But you, brethren, are not in darkness, that that day should overtake you as a thief. Ye are all children of the light and children of the day. We're not of the night, nor of the darkness. We should have revelation, shouldn't we? Let us therefore not sleep as others do, but watch and be sober. I've finished now. I just wanted to suggest that to you for you to consider. Recommended reading, Eurabia, the Europe Axis by Bat Dior. Published by Associated Press, that's the IBSN number. So you can stop your video if you're watching it on YouTube or Rumble or TikTok and get the details, because it's a very important book. And it's documented evidence. She's a scholarly woman, and she gives contracts and evidence of the alliance between France and Germany and the Arab countries to bring them in, to Muslimize Europe. Anyway, the study's gone. The next study coming up is The Bride and the Dragon. Well, I'm going to look at Revelation 12, see what you think of it. Take it or leave it, but consider it. God bless you. Have a wonderful week.